We are talking about in-depth sports stuff again. I got in a real conversation with Dale Jarrett yesterday about a back and forth that happened in a NASCAR race. And it was an hour after watching MSNBC and watching that the death toll from COVID-19 in our country was at 95,000. Is that part of the hard time we all may have as we try to return to sports, yet this really cold, awful reality continues to play out?
Yeah, Mike, I think that as I was reporting on this whole sports and virus thing for a story I did on NBCSports.com, one of the things that kept coming back was there's this paradox going on where all of us are desperate, not just those of us that work in the sports industry in one way or another, but people that are just fans. We're desperate to watch games again and to embrace the emotion of those events, like the NASCAR tape you played at the top of the broadcast. But at the same time, it's also, there's such a life-altering thing going on in the country that you have to take a step back and realize sports are really important to us, but it's not a bad time to measure exactly how important they are and where we need to put that in our lives. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think we all love sports, and we've all really been shaken by what's happened, and I think embracing both of those emotions at the same time is good for us.
You went through some of the things that we're so used to as part of sports that perhaps we'll have to get used to not seeing. I look at the baseball stuff, and what's one of the headlines of that 60-plus page health and safety guideline? No spitting. And people want to talk, well, can baseball players play without spitting? I mean, they've done that for years. Hockey, the end of a playoff series, which we love watching the intensity for 4 to 7 games, and then the gentlemanly nature of the handshake line. Will that be a thing of the past? Those are things we're just starting to all come to grips with now.
It is, and what I tried to do in the piece that I wrote, Mike, was not only look at, I think we all know that the next 4, 6, 8 months of sports are going to look quite a bit different than what we're used to in terms of empty crowds and just a different, complete feel to the sound and experience of sports. And I think we've all accepted that. And what I tried to imagine was how much of that is going to stick. And obviously empty stadiums and empty arenas aren't going to stick. We're going to get fans back in front of sports again, or sports back in front of fans. But I asked a lot of doctors and infectious disease specialists in what ways that things might be different in the long run. And I was kind of inspired, or at least shaken, by an image I saw in the Michael Jordan documentary where he was leaving the floor after one of those playoff wins, and there were dozens of fans just reaching down, holding their hand up for Michael to slap. And I think we all look at that and say, wow, is that going to happen in the future? And I think we accept that probably we're all going to interact with each other differently, and the hockey handshake line might be something that survives, but everybody washes their hands afterward. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it isn't really a joke. And a lot of other things, that the ways that fans at a football training camp might put their arms around a player and get a selfie taken, I just wonder if that's going to happen, or if we're just going to see a little more distance between sports and people. And that's sad, but it also might just be a reality to what's left over after this virus is gone.
There's an economic impact to the cities, the restaurants around the stadiums, and I've been talking to some folks in the college athletic space a lot this week. Some of the realities of what college sports is as we know it could very well change, and some of that is dependent on if we have a college football season or not. So that's another aspect of this that will continue to play out for all of us. Tim, let's go to something that we get to share and cover at NBC, and that's the Triple Crown, where the order will be different. So the Belmont, which is last, will go first. The Kentucky Derby, which is first, will go second. The Preakness, which is usually second, will go third. Just your thoughts on the Belmont. And let's begin there, because one of the significant points of this is that 1.5 mile test of a champion that usually is the Belmont will be different just in the length of the race to begin with.
Yeah, not only in the length of the race, Mike, but also in the fact that most of the horses running in it will have had a significant layoff, and they won't have already gone through the Derby and the Preakness. I realize in recent years very few horses ran all three, but often we had one that did, whether it was California Chrome or American Pharoah or Justify. There were horses that ran all three. War of Will last year. So that's different. I think we all have to accept that this is not the Belmont with a capital B that we're used to. But at the same time, it's still a big race at Belmont Park. In a lot of ways, it's going to be different. It really is almost a prep race for the Derby at this point, not the culmination of what we think of as the Triple Crown. But that's okay. I think we can accept all that and just be happy that all of the 3-year-olds that we were getting excited about in February and March, a lot of them are going to get together and run at Belmont Park. And it's a 1 1/8. That's a one-turn 1 1/8, and it's a very different race from the Test of a Champion that we're used to seeing on the first or second weekend in June. But it's still going to be exciting to watch, and it's still going to give us a really good idea who these horses are and who they're going to be going forward.
Yeah, instead of 6 weeks between the Triple Crown races, amongst those 3 races, it'll be 15 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes. And, of course, this will be the year that a horse wins the Belmont and the Derby, and we'll have reams of stories written about, is this really a Triple Crown or not? Let's hope we're having those conversations before the Preakness in October. And speaking of writing stories, which you have done so brilliantly for your career, Tim, will journalism and the way sports are covered be altered, in your opinion, in the post-coronavirus sports world?
Well, I think they have to be. I think we're probably seeing the end of the open locker room. That was sort of a flashpoint in the public back when the virus first broke, and one of the first things that happened was that the NBA and the NHL and MLB, I believe at the start of spring training, just said we're not going to allow journalists into our locker rooms anymore. And I get that a lot of public doesn't understand why we go in there, but it really is an important place to gather information and to forge relationships and really to get to know people when the cameras are off. But I think that everyone's going to go a little beyond what might be necessary in the name of caution and safety and everybody's health. So I think that you're going to see open locker rooms close. I think you're going to see just a little more distanced relationship between the sports media and athletes and coaches. And I think we'll find a way around that. But I think that you and I have both been in this business a long time. It's getting to know people, sitting next to them, going out to lunch or dinner like I have with so many athletes, like whether it's Michael Phelps or Usain Bolt or Drew Brees or Peyton Manning. We're going to see less of that. And I think we'll adjust and we'll get used to it. But a little something will get lost in that process. And I just hope we find a way to get around that and still forge relationships and learn to work with each other at a little more of a distance, just like everybody's doing in society.
Yeah, and the pros like you telling the stories are part of the charm of reading about our great athletes. Finances at sports media companies have changed that a little bit. Many things, including players getting their own stories out with their social media accounts, has changed that. This will be another factor, but the great storytellers are going to tell a great story. That's why it's cool to have Tim Layden on your team. Tim, thanks. I hope everybody gets a chance to read your article on NBCSports.com, and I hope you can enjoy the holiday weekend. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.